It's one of our planet's most iconic buildings, a symbol of the US, and the most secure family home in the world.
Welcome to the White House.
Each of the rooms has a special personality.
I just think that everything in the White House should be the best.
I want to welcome all of you here.
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
This is the people's house, for real.
But deep inside the White House, the president does a lot more than just eat, sleep, binge the B1M and repeat. This is where some of the world's most consequential decisions are taken, and when you've got stuff like that going on, keeping unwanted people out and critical secrets in is the name of the game.
Probably the most
and one of the most secure buildings in the world.
The most secure buildings in the world.
It's one of the most secure places in the freaking world.
Over the centuries, this simple neoclassical house has, threat by threat, quietly become one of the most subtly fortified sites in the world. There's everything from snipers and missiles to nuclear-proof bunkers, layer upon layer of fencing, and secret underground tunnels to protect the administration and the first family. You've got an office, home and event space above ground, and a secret labyrinth of operation centres and surveillance underneath. This place is world famous, yet still shrouded in mystery. So sit down, strap yourself in, and prepare to be fully briefed on the insane security of the White House. Now, before bringing you up to speed on White House security, we need to make sure you're suitably briefed on this site. We start way back in 1791 when the White House first started coming to life. Following a competition to design the mansion, Irish-born architect James Hoban saw his vision begin to take shape. As was sadly common at the time, much of the construction was carried out with the forced labour of enslaved people. Using sandstone, the White House had more than 100 rooms spread over 3 floors. It would of course go on to be changed and updated multiple times over the years. In 1814, the British started a fire here that grew so large the glow could be seen 50 miles away. Sorry about that. It was only heavy rainfall that stopped the president's house from being flattened entirely. Notable updates throughout the 19th century included the addition of terraces to the east and west and the iconic semicircular portico to the south. The famous West Wing was added in 1902 to create more office space. It was only meant to be temporary, but in 1909, President William Taft decided he wanted it doubled in size. Taft's real architectural legacy came with the construction of the Oval Office. Inspired by the Blue Room inside the mansion, that's the original bit of the building, the oval shape dates back to President Washington's Philadelphia mansion, the original site of the US Capitol. And this room has been the main workspace of the presidents ever since. Cementing the future of the West Wing, FDR expanded it again in 1934, from 15,000 up to 40,000 square feet. The East Wing, meanwhile, wasn't constructed until 1942, again to create more office space. But by the late 1940s, after standing for a century and a half, the White House was starting to show its age. America's most famous home was in danger of collapse. The beams supporting the structure were falling apart, and President Truman regularly complained of popping sounds and drafts. Then, in 1948, following reports it was actually unsafe to live in, the president left the White House. Everything, and I mean everything bar the outer walls, was completely rebuilt. Deep foundations were dug below the house, and the interior was fitted out with a new steel frame skeleton. More than 120 reinforced concrete columns were poured to a depth of 25 feet to support the inner walls, and 2 new sub-basement levels were excavated. It wasn't until 1952 when Truman and his family finally moved back in to what is, aside from some renovations and tech upgrades, by and large the White House that we all know today. Now, big decisions are made at the White House every day, but the crucial daily maintenance of local infrastructure generally falls to local cities and councils. It can be a long and expensive process to make sure that the roads we use every day are up to scratch. Thankfully, today's video sponsor, Vialytics, are here to help. They're helping towns, cities and communities across the world improve road infrastructure whilst also saving money. And they're doing it with their intelligent road management system.
Now that might sound complicated, but it really couldn't be any easier. Using the Vialytics app, roads are constantly monitored by one of these mounted to the dashboard of any vehicle. And it can be any vehicle, literally, from a garbage truck to a bike.
The app detects 15 different damage categories, from potholes to downed manhole covers, and feeds the information into an interactive map that gives real-time status updates. It makes it easier than ever to act quickly on a problem. And it's all recorded in a privacy-compliant manner, with any faces blurred for your peace of mind. When a problem does arise, the Vialytics task management system lets you appoint someone to fix it with just a few clicks.
Now, I've had a go at this myself. I've put it through its paces in my own car on the UK's pretty notorious road network. And honestly, it really is impressive stuff.
To learn more about how Vialytics can save you time and money, click on the link in the description or visit vialytics.com. Now, let's get back to the White House. Now, on one hand, the White House is a ridiculously secure building full of mystery and international secrets. But on the other, we as the public are welcome to apply to have a nosy round this grand old house. There are 132 rooms and what feels like a disproportionate 35 bathrooms. They're spread across 6 levels, a 2-storey basement, the ground floor, first floor, second floor and third floor, and it's all accessed using 8 staircases and 3 lifts. The structure has more than 400 doors, nearly 150 windows, and 28 fireplaces for those cold DC winters. For those of you that can't make it out here for the tour, don't worry, because we're going to take you on one right now. We're starting over here in the 2-storey East Wing, where the office of the First Lady or First Gentleman is based. But dig down much, much deeper and you'll discover the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, or PEOC. Built as a concrete air raid shelter following the attack on Pearl Harbor, it's fitted out with everything you'd need to communicate with the outside world. It's this complex where then Vice President Dick Cheney and eventually President Bush were moved to on 9/11, and it's rumoured to be able to withstand a nuclear attack. In the iconic Executive Mansion, you'll find the staterooms spread across the ground and first floors, with the residence where the First Family actually lives above that. A corridor connects the East and West Wings, stretching all the way through the main house. And so, over to the West Wing. Along the ground floor, there are offices for the Secret Service and Homeland Security. The Navy mess is here too. Since 1951, the Navy's best culinary minds have catered for the White House. Next door is the famous Situation Room, which has just received a $50 million upgrade. It was first built following the Bay of Pigs invasion and was used for updates throughout the Vietnam War by Lyndon Johnson. It's from here that George W. Bush launched the Iraq War and where Barack Obama watched the Navy SEAL team raid against bin Laden. It's a lot more than just a room too. It's actually a 5,500 square foot network made up of various spaces. In fact, it used to be a bowling alley, but don't worry, that lane still exists, it's just been relocated. You can now find it sandwiched between a flower shop and the carpenter's shop underneath the north portico. On the first floor of the West Wing is the press briefing room, the original site of the indoor pool, the cabinet room, and of course, the Oval Office. There's also another 100 or so rooms for the Vice President and various other functions that we haven't really got time to go through now. So, how do you keep all of this secure? It's fair to say that security at the White House has evolved over the years. Back in 1842, the author Charles Dickens visited the White House, and when nobody answered the door, he just let himself in. We would strongly recommend not doing that today. While as a viewer of the B1M, I personally trust your character, security staff can never be too sure. You can book ahead to tour the White House, but if you're planning a visit, requests have to be made 3 weeks in advance to allow for background checks. Everything from the grounds to the skies here is on permanent 24/7 watch. Any pilots trying to take an unplanned shortcut through Washington airspace will be promptly escorted away by military aircraft. Worse, they may be warned about the likelihood of an incoming missile. Short to medium-range surface-to-air missiles are stationed at key locations around Washington. They're ready to act at a moment's notice. It really is the most restricted patch of sky in the world. The nearest airport to the White House is Reagan National, about 4 miles away. Since 9/11, a flight-restricted zone has extended for 15 nautical miles around the airport, with strict controls over entering the airspace. There's also Prohibited Area 56 or P56. It's existed for 50 years and covers the White House, the National Mall, and the residence of the Vice President. Back on the ground, the best place to start is with the fence around the White House perimeter. It's simple but very effective. In 2023, it was raised from 6.5 feet to 13 feet. Now, that might not sound too high, but altogether it's 3,500 feet of thick iron bars fitted with pressure sensors, anti-climb and anti-intrusion technology. Thanks to help from its deep concrete footings, it's also blast and ram-proof, a very far cry from the wooden fence that once stood here in the 1800s. A range of infrared cameras and a roof-mounted radar system highlight intruders to security services. The 150 windows are fitted with the strongest bulletproof glass on the planet. In 2011, several shots were fired at the White House from a semi-automatic rifle. None managed to penetrate the windows, but it was still a big moment in the history of this building. Now, protecting what's often called the People's House is a task given to the Secret Service. While it's not publicly known how many agents are stationed at the White House, we do know that at all hours, well over 1,000 officers are placed there and at key locations around DC. Groups of armed agents patrol the grounds, and a team of snipers keep watch from the roof of the executive mansion. And yet, with all those measures, there are still those who've tried their luck at a very ill-advised break-in. In 2014, before the fence was upgraded, a 2-year-old managed to squeeze through the bars to the north and delay a presidential address. How many lockdowns at ultra-secure government facilities had you caused by the age of 2? Of course, there have in fact been multiple more dramatic and even fatal attempts. Our unequivocal advice is please don't bother. Book a tour like everyone else, or just watch this video again. Conspiracies about the White House are a dime a dozen. It's no secret that the president's mansion is surrounded by exactly that. Secrets. From east to west, top to bottom, but most notably, down below, the tunnels. It's popular opinion that underneath the White House there's a system of passageways. Probably not quite like that. Here's what we do know for sure. There's a tunnel that leads down to the Presidential Emergency Operations Center. Then, between the East Wing and the Treasury Building, there's another 761-foot escape route. Less substantiated rumours include underground passages to the Pentagon, the Capitol Building, Blair House, and the residence of the Vice President. As you can see, the rumours of these tunnels really do stretch far and wide, quite literally. Unfortunately, any further information is well above our clearance level. The White House is a lot more than just a big and imposing mansion. It's steeped in history, a survivor of fires, plane crashes, and multiple wars. It's a place of history-altering decisions and family memories alike, an architecturally significant and world-renowned landmark. But even with its endless renovations and security upgrades, at its heart, James Hoburn's original White House still lives on. And with a new family moving in very soon, who knows what the next chapter of history might bring. This video was sponsored by Vialytics. You can learn more about that at the link below. Don't forget that we're inspiring the next generation of builders through our investment into Brickborrow. You can learn more and get started today, and even build the White House over at brickborrow.com. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.
The B1M, and I'm a fan.
Which is run by a guy named Fred. Fred is a lot of people are watching.
Infrastructure.
Construction. It's the best ever by far.
I love Fred.
And congratulations to Fred.
I'm going to sign this for you, Fred.